Hi, welcome to Business is Personal. On this episode, I have Ahmed Imam, who's got like 1 million followers on LinkedIn, and he's an advisor to the royal family. We're going to talk about authenticity. We're going to talk about why kings should never send their armies home. And we're going to talk about the importance of personal branding for executives. Do you feel disconnected at work? Are you feeling exhausted? Almost like you hate your job and secretly, maybe your boss too? This is Business is Personal, a blueprint to discovering and creating meaning at work in collaboration with Smashy TV, a live streaming service in the Middle East for the driven, the dreamers, and the doers. Hi, welcome again to Business is Personal. I am so excited about my guest today. This is a good friend of mine. This is Ahmed Imam. We had the most amazing Indian dinner the other day. It was so, you called it a degustation.
It was a degustation.
And it really was. It was like 8 different courses. Fantastic at the restaurant Carnival in Dubai. If you've ever been there, it's fantastic. But it's really nice to have you here.
Thank you.
I love hanging out with my friends on my show, on camera, and just having real conversations with you guys. So I'm really appreciated that you're here. For those of you who don't know Ahmed Imam, he is a social media guru. He is a presenter and host and speaker, and he's got like 1 million, he actually has 1 million followers on LinkedIn. And you're not going to brag about it, but I am. I'm going to brag about your 1 million followers. That's a pretty big thing, man. That's a big thing. And there's lots of people out there, they're going to want to know how you got to 1 million followers. Do you have a secret?
I do. I mean, did you want me to share it now?
Yeah, go on. Let's get right into the meat, right?
Let's get right into it. Well, pleasure to meet everyone, first of all. So I grew 1 million followers over the course of 3 years, and for me the strategy was very, very simple, right? In terms of success in any given industry, you do one of 2 things. You find someone that's actually done it, that's been where you want to be, and you ask them for directions, and that's exactly what I did. So I jumped on LinkedIn, and instantly I could see 5 to 10 people that are just constantly in the feed getting great engagement. And I reached out to them. You know,
because you've done interviews with like Gary Vee, Richard Branson, Tony Robbins. Forgive me, there's probably more. But are these the guys that you were learning from?
No, not at that level. Not at that level. Okay. But I mean, people that were on LinkedIn that were getting, that maybe had 50,000 followers at the time or 100,000 followers at the time. Considering I just started with a few thousand. And reached out to them and just asked them what I could do.
Fantastic.
And you gradually get tips from each person. And as you level up to maybe then 50,000, you reach out to someone that has 100,000 or 200,000. And so I kept doing that. The other thing that I was doing was being very, very giving and supportive. And this is the thing. Content is one thing when it comes to social media. You need to have great content. And compelling content that differentiates you, but you also need to give love to other people.
Right, sure.
Right? So the more love you give, the more love you get. The law of reciprocity really, really works.
Yeah, definitely.
And so I invested a lot of time in engaging on other people's comments, other people's content. And when they say my content in the feed, they would then reciprocate and comment as well.
So those would be your top tips then. If you want to grow your followers on LinkedIn, reach out to people that are bigger than you.
And ask for directions.
And ask for directions. Comment and engage. Right? And engage meaningfully, I think probably would be the third thing, is just make sure that you're adding value.
Add some actual value. And keep in mind, when you comment, you are becoming more visible.
That's right.
The end goal is to get people to your profile. Right? By any means. And that can be via content or that can be via engaging.
Oh, that's brilliant.
But ask for directions, engage, and create some creative, different, compelling content.
Right. Well, Ahmed Imam is one of the influencers, okay? He's like LinkedIn's, what was it? You were in the top 10?
Top 10 influencers in 2021, but that's just across the board. That's just not LinkedIn.
No, but okay, so it's not just social media, okay? But your influence is much bigger than just the social media platform. And we talk a lot in social media about imposter syndrome and about making sure we're not presenting ourselves to be something that we're actually not. This is the guy that the UAE Royal Office asks for advice. That's the kind of influence. It's practical. It's boots on the ground kind of influence. And what would you say, I think, is the biggest struggle for you in terms of maintaining authenticity online?
How much to tell and how much to give.
I get that too, because I want to show people pictures of my family, of the kids, of my wife, and then everybody's telling me do it on Instagram, but not on LinkedIn. You can show pictures of your family on your personal page on Facebook, but not on your business page, right? And I don't know if those rules apply anymore. What do you think?
Well, I mean, it depends on each individual. I've got one rule, and I don't show my family. So I'll talk about them, but I don't show photos of my daughter or of my wife or anything like that. It's personal to me. In terms of vulnerabilities, I'm happy to share vulnerabilities. You know, and I do that often, and that's actually how I built such a large following.
Right.
I talk about things like when I was younger, I was a very shy and awkward kid. You know, I couldn't even look people in the eyes. That's how shy I was.
That is so hard to believe now.
I know that. I genuinely felt like I didn't have the right to take up the voice space.
Right.
And so I wouldn't talk. I would remain silent and let other people talk.
So what was the turning point for you?
Very interesting. I actually worked, one of my first jobs was being a dishwasher.
Okay.
Okay, so I worked.
That's not sexy, by the way.
It's not a sexy job.
Yeah.
You leave with pruned fingers.
Yeah.
And it was at a pizza restaurant. So, so you got pizza cheese stuck to your feet. there's nothing pretty about it. But the manager or the owner was actually a serial entrepreneur, and he was someone that really believed in me for whatever reason. I felt like I didn't have, you know, anything to offer at the time.
Right.
But he saw something in me, and every time he would come in, he would spend a bit of time with me and mentor me and give me some advice. But one day when I was on the verge of leaving, he gifted me something that changed everything for me. And he gifted me a 24-disc CD set by Tony Robbins.
Oh, wow.
Okay, and this was back in 1999, so he was called Anthony Robbins then.
Right, sure.
All right, and he kind of looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, he had a business suit on, he had the suspenders. Had no idea who this guy was. But I took home this 24-disc CD set, and we're showing our age here, right? And I was blown away. It was the first time I'd experienced self-improvement. It challenged me to build my confidence, build my courage, and from that point, and over the course of the next 10, 15 years, that's what I did.
Yeah.
I did things that just scared the bejesus out of me, right? Like I would do things like volunteer to MC a friend's wedding or do a sales presentation. They terrified me, but I know that I grew through it. Yeah. And 15 years later, I'm presenting, I'm speaking, I'm super comfortable on stage, and that took work.
Oh, that's amazing, because even now there's a number of my executive coaching clients that still struggle with public speaking.
Yeah.
And they themselves struggle with their online branding. It's a good question for you. How important do you would think an online personal brand is for the average executive today? Because I think it's important. I think it's becoming increasingly more important.
It's crucial. I mean, and we can take examples, right? We've got Gary Vaynerchuk versus VaynerMedia. Right. We've got Richard Branson versus Virgin. We've got Elon Musk versus Tesla. When you think of each of those examples, you're not really thinking about the companies. You're thinking about the personal brands, and they're the ones that complement the business and drive that business. And right now, considering the generational shift that we're going through from baby boomers to Gen X to now millennials, who are the largest part of the workforce, and Gen Z is coming up. Millennials and Gen Z gravitate towards people, they gravitate towards values. All right, so they're not convinced by the large business marketing that's been the case for the last few decades. They're convinced by real people talking. Yeah, that's right. Like you know, we see people like Gary Vee just being real and sharing his values and his core and his foundation. They gravitate towards that, and then they'll gravitate towards whatever it is he's doing as a business. Yeah. And so if you're a CEO that has thousands of staff underneath you, you have to be the brand ambassador for your business.
I totally agree. And I'm commonly, I do a lot of restructuring work, so I'm commonly involved in the hiring processes for C-suiters. Yeah. And I'm always saying, your CV gets you the interview, but your character gets you the job. And one of the first things that I'm doing, if I'm looking at the CV for a CFO for a company, first thing I do is I check out their social media, because that's going to tell me about their character. I'm going to see moments that they accidentally leaked 3 years ago, the less curated moments, stuff that you're not going to see in the interview, right?
The less curated moments. Yeah, and I'll tell you a story. So I mean, I had a dream for a very long time, because I was a huge fan of Tony Robbins. Yeah. That I wanted to be around him. I wanted to be in that space, right? Like I was absorbing all of his content, his CDs, then his DVDs, then his books, and then his events and everything else as I grew over the course of 10, 15 years. And there was this company that partnered with him. The company was called Success Resources. Yeah. And they're a global company that work with Tony Robbins and Gary Vaynerchuk and Richard Branson, Robert Kiyosaki,
Right.
all of these great influential thought leaders that we know of.
Yeah.
Anyway, I found this gentleman on LinkedIn who was the managing director of Success Resources, right? And by this time I'd built a bit of a presence. I think I had about 100,000 followers at the time. I was releasing regular content. And I thought, you know what, I'm just going to try my luck. I'm just going to send him a direct message and say, look, I'd love to catch up on a call. Perhaps there's some way we can collaborate. I just threw it out there. I didn't expect a response. I received a response within a day.
Wow.
And he said, sure, let's jump on a call.
Wow.
And so I got super excited. You know, I got ready to pitch myself. I knew exactly what I was going to say. I've done this, I've done that. I can add this value. I can add that, I can add that value. I jumped on a call with him and he's like, hey, Ahmed, how are you? I'm like, I'm good. And I was getting ready to get into my pitch. And within 5 seconds of the pitch, he's like, Ahmed, I actually know who you are. I've been following you now for the last 6 months. I know what you're all about. Come into the office, let's make something happen.
Wow. Wow, that's fantastic.
No resume, no CV. That's all through the power of video content and social media.
Well, because he already knew you.
Yes.
Right? And I find that too. I have a lot of people that reach out to me on LinkedIn or Instagram that they have a relationship with me, but I haven't been aware of it. I know you probably have that experience too. People are like, oh, you know, I really love this is what you said. I've been following you for a few months. We've never engaged in any way, but I just want to let you know this. And then tell me some personal story about themselves.
Yeah.
But they've got a relationship with me that I've just not been aware of. And I feel like I'm consistently trying to catch up with strangers online.
Well, that's what happens with social media. I mean, especially with video content, people will feel like they know you.
Oh, I know. I want to get there to that place where, you know, I'm able to provide value that improves the quality of 1 million lives every month. And I don't know how to metric that yet. And I don't know if I need to metric that on a single platform or a single message. But I really think that if we can improve 1 million lives every month, I think that's a pretty good way to spend your day, you know?
That's a pretty good way to spend your day.
Yeah.
And look, I've had a chance to know you personally now, and people need to hear you. You know, the things that you have to say need to be said at scale. You know, so I will support that in any way.
Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate that. You didn't have to say that. That was honoring. I appreciate that.
That's okay. He actually told me to say that before the interview.
Yeah, right. Oh man, that's so good. Like I want to talk about the value of personal branding, but not just for the person being branded. Because look, as a C-suiter, if you're going for a job, yes, they're gonna interview you first on your social media before they bring you in for the interview, and that's going to be a part of the filter through which they see your character.
Sure.
So we get that, right?
Yeah.
C-suiters really need to be building their personal brands.
Yeah.
How important is it for a company that their executives have strong personal brands?
Yeah. So this is the thing. You can have many faces of the company.
Yeah.
The CEO does need to be visible, and this is where they do need to have the ability to inspire. They need to have the ability to speak and communicate and be approachable.
Yeah, definitely.
And present themselves in such a way that it does appeal to the existing generations. But all of your employees can be brand ambassadors for your business.
Yeah, that's right.
Every single one.
Yeah, that's right.
And if you think about it, I mean, you're multiplying and compounding your visibility and the amount of revenue that you can generate.
Yeah.
But you also need to train your employees how to be brand ambassadors, and you need to have a social media policy, because I've seen things go very, very wrong very, very quickly in multinational companies. As in people posting just the most outlandish things and it affecting and impacting the brand. But it's not just the CEO and the executives that can be brand ambassadors. It can quite literally be the entire business if done correctly. Yeah,
I read a good study actually on sales and the importance of brand ambassadorship on social media for salespeople.
Yeah.
And people in sales will sell 50 to 60% more if they're using their personal social media accounts to promote their products and services.
Yeah.
And we think of that as maybe being a little, I don't know if it's unprofessional or uber professional. But to tie yourself to your product or service, we either think of it as being unprofessional or uber professional. Like, why would you do that? But the thing is, these people, they're tying half of their lives every day to that product or service, right? So whatever it is that you're representing, cars, food, doesn't matter. Half of your life every day is effectively moving forward that product or service because you believe it's going to improve the quality of the lives of your customers. Why would you not tie that to who you are as a person. That is who you are. It's at least half of you.
100%. And that's actually been my secret. So, I mean, it's not just presenting your professional persona and your expertise and your knowledge. It's peeling back those layers and showing people the human being behind the business persona.
That's right.
The human being behind the brand. So, I mean, I'll talk about my vulnerabilities. I'll talk about very human things. I'll talk about the fact that I go home and put on a pair of shorts and I play with my kids just like everybody else.
But you won't show pictures.
What's that?
But you won't show pictures of you in your shorts with your kids.
No, I won't do that.
That's the line, right?
That's the line. But the key is I want to tell people what I believe, and I want to attract a community of people that believe the same things that I believe. Right. And then from that sector is where I'll find my target audience and my ideal clients, because that way I know that I'll actually enjoy working with them as well. Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah, for me it's the same. I like talking to people that I like talking to. I like talking with people that I like talking with, but I also want to make sure that I'm attracting enough friction to keep me sharp.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
So sometimes, I mean, I'm not as good as others like Gary or maybe Chris Reed at picking fights online. I don't do that typically. But I think I want to get a little bit better at doing that, at engaging with people in real, like, sharp public dialogue, so that I too can become sharper. Because I tend to learn a lot through those.
Challenging people's current perspectives.
Yeah, because I get sharper during those times too. Yeah. And I commonly see things online that I disagree with, and I tend to not comment.
Right.
But I'd like to become a little more brave in that.
Well, here's the thing. Every single thought leader has an opinion. You'll never find a thought leader that sits on the fence, right?
Right.
They have an opinion and a very, very strong one, and they stick to that and they remain consistent with that. Yeah. And so that's why you'll find them picking fights and challenging people, because they're being challenged and they want to put forward their opinion.
Yeah, but I mean, there's balance, right? I don't want to pick a fight for the sake of the fight. I want to pick a sparring match.
Okay, well that sounds very aggressive.
Sparring? Well, yeah, okay, sparring is a bit aggressive, but you know, like it's the way that boxers train with each other, right?
Yeah.
I want to train with people that make me stronger, because training with them makes me stronger.
Yeah.
And that's the same with the dialogue. I want to have these debates, but I want to have them more online with people that I disagree with, so that both of us can get sharper. Like, we don't have to disagree and hate each other.
Yeah.
We can disagree and add value to each other by making each other sharper in our own perspectives. Right?
I love that. I love that. And there's a respectful way of doing that, of course.
Yeah, for sure. But I've disagreed with several people online on things that they say about business and about, specifically about letting people go in business. Because there's a huge debate during COVID.
I know you're passionate about that.
Yeah, I'm very passionate about that. I mean, from the psychological perspective, it's very difficult for a human to lose their economic community in a day without any real warning and without it being based on their own performance. Yeah. If a human a human tells another human, hey, your performance in our community is really good, you're adding value, everything's fine, but we're going to let you go because we can't feed you or your family. That's so painful for people. And we've got 1 million years of history in building relationships with each other and helping each other.
You actually go through a bit of grief. I mean, I recently caught up with my cousin who I hadn't seen for a very long time. I live in Australia, he lives in Egypt. We somehow ended up in Dubai at the same time.
Yeah.
He left his business, not his business, but a business he was working with, after 18 years.
Wow.
And he actually said he felt grief for about a month because these people became family. It's a real thing, and if that was a redundancy, that level of grief just only amplifies. So
yeah, definitely.
I'm 100% with you.
I mean, most companies, I'm teaching companies, right? You want your people engaged, and you want them to be engaged with each other as much as they are with the brand and or the service or the product, right? You want them to be engaged with each other, because that's gonna produce discretionary effort. It's gonna produce camaraderie. It's gonna produce good communication. We want good communication in our organizations, but then we take like a pool of 8 accountants, really talented 8 accountants, and we say, okay, we just don't need 2 of you anymore. And what happens is, from an accounting perspective, is you cut the labor budget by 25% by removing 2 of the accountants from the pool of 8.
Right.
You cut it down to 6.
Right.
But what happens socially is you've taught the rest of those people that their community is not safe. The one that you've been wanting them to build loyalty in, the one that you've been wanting them to add value to, at any moment, for any arbitrary reason, some of the members of a community can be pulled out. And I think that's a dangerous game to play for financial reasons. I think the financial impact on the bottom line immediately is positive, but over the ensuing next 2 or 3 years is extremely negative, because you lose that discretionary effort and you lose that sense of culture, and you create a culture of distrust. And that tends to undermine the performance of the organization. So those are the fights that I pick online, is with people that are...
When we caught up for the first time, you told me this analogy that I've now repeated to so many people.
Oh, good.
And it's the historical king analogy.
Yeah.
And I'd love for you to talk about that, because it reigns so true.
A good king doesn't send his army home when he can't beat him. A good king sacks a new town.
Yeah.
So remember that. Okay, we as humans, we don't have a history of saying, hey, thanks so much for your service, time for you to go home. What we do have is we have a history of building our organizations based on military or violent conquest. Okay, that's our history. Now we're playing economic games over the last 300 years, and they're more peaceful and more elegant, but our history hasn't been economic. Largely, it's been violent. Okay, and so our kings in history, a good king doesn't say, hey, I can't take care of you guys, you should go. A good king says, hey, we haven't tackled that town yet. Let's go take that land and take their resources. And I think that's the kind of mindset that we need now, is to protect our employees by saying, hey, we're kind of running out of resources to feed our employees and their families. So let's conquer a new market.
Exactly.
That's what we need. We don't have that market yet. Let's go get, and then we become competitive, right? Competitive in the way that humans have survived. We've been surviving by taking over markets for the last million years, and I think we just got lazy and forgot that.
I mean, and look at all the many different examples. I mean, Netflix started with DVDs.
Oh, I know, and those horrible boxes, the distribution. Right, it was horrible.
And they were like, okay, what new market can we tap into? And look at the Netflix of today.
Yeah, it's amazing. No, it's absolutely true, and I think we need more good kings and queens in business.
That's the key.
I think, and we need them to be so socially responsible that they're aggressive in the market. They're more aggressive toward the market than they are toward their own employees. I think when you start cutting parts off of the body to lose weight, you've taken the wrong approach to weight loss.
I think that's pretty fair to say, yeah.
Well, can you imagine? That would be like, I've used the analogy actually in my book of the horrible surgeon. Have you heard this story?
I don't think I have.
The horrible surgeon, yeah. It's a horrible surgeon that says to you, hey, you need to lose some weight, so let's just take your left arm off because you're right-handed, right? You don't need it, right? We'll take out your large intestine because you can survive without that. One of your kidneys can go. You can lose that. We'll do a bunch of liposuction, okay? And you'll lose tons of weight. If your only goal is weight loss, at the end of the day, you can go to a bad surgeon and they'll tell you which parts of your body you can cut off and still survive with, right? And it's the same in consulting with redundancy programs in organizations. Is the organization has one metric: we want weight loss, and these bad surgeons come in and say, oh, well, you can cut this part of the body out, you can cut that part of the body out, and you'll survive. And it's true, you'll survive, but at what cost?
And what is the real intention?
Yeah. Well, the real intention is weight loss, because the consultant and the CEO both get bonuses based on the weight of the body at the end of the day, not on its performance.
That's crazy.
It is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely. I've questioned a lot of things in the consulting industry as a result of not working in the Big Four. Right. I get to see them from the outside and see what they do, and I question a lot of the consulting industry's motives and activities, and that's the sort of fight that I like to pick online. Is I'll pick fights with HR professionals on things like talent retention. I think talent retention is a myth, by the way. I don't know if I've told you that before.
Why do you believe that?
I think good talent is always going to be sought. Right? If you're really, really talented, you should always be in demand. And it would be the more talented you are, the more effective you are in your job, the more difficult it's going to be for your company to keep you. So we have talent retention programs, we have talent retention principles. But let's give you the case in point. The #1 HR professional in probably the best developed HR company in the world, Laszlo Bock, who was the group head of HR for Alphabet, over Google. He couldn't even retain himself. He quit after 10 years to start his own thing because that's what talent does. You know, the talent wants to grow, wants to be challenged, wants to try new things.
Right.
So I think really great talent can't be retained, which means we have to be amazing as organizations at bringing great people in and celebrating them when they leave and making sure that the time that they have with us is the most productive time in their career. Then they walk out as ambassadors. So then they're saying all kinds of cool stuff about their experience with Ahmed Imam and his team for that time when they spent that time with you.
Right.
Wow. I think we need a lot more online ambassadors and a little bit less talent retention. Does that make sense to you?
Makes sense. I think it's one of those things we can dive deep into for a while.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah.
So tell me, what of your day-to-day work, what of it is the most meaningful to you?
Look, I'm all about impact. So
Yeah.
I'm all about impact over income, and I truly believe that if you make a big enough impact,
Yeah.
that the income will come. But I genuinely love giving influence and visibility to people that deserve it. Right, right. As in, when I speak to someone and I hear something that just blows my mind, and I almost feel like if you and I were talking just by ourselves, and I feel that thousands of people should be listening to this conversation, I feel an obligation to make that person more visible so that they can then make more of an impact. And that's what I love to do. So a lot of the people that I'm working with are high net worth individuals that they do have influence offline.
Yeah.
Right? So the CEOs, executives, royal family members, billionaires, and they've got influence in their circle.
Yeah.
And they can make an impact with that circle. But I help them then translate that to the online presence and scale it to millions.
Yeah.
And the amount of impact that can then be made is huge, and it compounds. That I love to do. The other thing I love to do, which I've had since I've been a child, is I just love performing.
Right.
Right. So I love presenting. I love hosting.
Yeah.
I love podcasts. I love interviews. I love getting that buzz from being able to present, perform,
Yeah.
and interact.
And since you've been able to like maximize all of that stuff, now you have the freedom and flexibility to be able to maximize the amount of time you're spending doing things that are meaningful as opposed to doing things that are mediocre or monotone, right?
I've cut everything out of my life that I no longer enjoy. So I mean, I've come from the corporate space for 15 years.
Yeah.
Most recently, prior to everything that I'm doing now, I was the director of a property consultancy. I was making great money and I hated it. I was miserable every single day, you know. So I just tapped into the things that I genuinely enjoy doing, and for me, I just had to find a way of getting paid to do it.
I'm really blessed to be in a similar position where I only work with people that I like. I'm only solving puzzles that are interesting to me.
Good. Do you like me, by the way?
I do.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I like hanging out with. Honestly, we're going to get together in the next few days before you leave Dubai, and we'll hang out again for sure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this amazing conversation.
My pleasure.
It has added tremendous value to my life.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate spending this half hour with you because neither of us are going to get it back.
Yeah.
Right? The half hour that we spent together is gone now.
Yeah.
That's all.
That's right.
And I hope that having you listen in provides a little bit of value to your life and a little bit more meaning to your workful day. Do you feel disconnected at work? Are you feeling exhausted? Almost like you hate your job and secretly maybe your boss too? This is Business is Personal, a blueprint to discovering and creating meaning at work in collaboration with Smashy TV, a live streaming service in the Middle East for the driven, the dreamers, and the doers.